Take it away.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, as all of you know, Ohio is celebrating the country's 250th anniversary. And as part of that, Ohio has set aside months with different themes. So it just so happens that the speaker who was supposed to make it this month didn't make it. And the theme is Ohio Works, about businesses and innovation. So the thing that the Historical Society and me as a reporter are constantly asked is, what are those two brick buildings that are abandoned on Boston Road? So I knew it was the Buckeye Pipeline Company. I didn't know anything about it. And so we started looking into it. And believe it or not, there's quite a bit of information, and we have found some people who know way more than I do, but I'm going to tell you what I found first. Okay, we're going to explore a place. The Historical Society and I get a lot of questions. It's local history that connects a small crossroads community to a national energy network that continues today. It's the story of the Buckeye Pipeline Company, pumping station, and BB Town. Everybody know where BB Town is? Before the pumping station arrived, BB Town was already a surprisingly busy place. 4 townships come together: Strongsville, Brunswick, Liverpool, and Columbia, making it a natural gathering place in the 1860s. Early settlers like the Fuller and Beebe families built potash works, tanneries, cheese factories, and general stores. Cheese factories, who knew? It was a big little town full of activity. You'll note that if you go down Marks Road at Boston, you'll see Beebetown Baptist Church, which is now the Presbyterian Church, but that's the original. When I started writing for the newspaper in the 1960s, they were still doing German services because there were so many German immigrants, mostly in Liverpool Township, but it was the last place in the whole area that had German services. The arrival in the late 1800s set the stage for something even bigger, and that was the oil industry. Buckeye Pipeline began in 1886 as part of the Standard Oil Trust. Its job was simple, but essential: move crude oil from the Lima, Ohio, Lima fields to refineries on Lake Erie. After the breakup of Standard Oil in 1911, Buckeye became an independent common carrier, and it grew fast. By the mid-20th century, it operated thousands of miles of pipeline across multiple states. And in 1890, Beebetown became one of its pumping hubs. Buckeye purchased 20 acres of land at the southeast corner of Prospect and Boston Roads. Brick for the buildings had to be hauled from Berea over dirt roads. Some machinery weighed several tons, requiring special wagons and teams of horses. Local families housed the workers, fed them, and became part of the project. 2 major brick buildings rose on the site. One for the pumps with enormous flywheels, and you'll see those pictures here if you come up, and one for boilers, each weighing around 20 tons. Coal had to be hauled 1.5 miles from the railroad. A great job in the winter mud. I can't even imagine. Once running, the station pushed crude oil 35 miles at a time. Early on, the oil came from Lima. Later, it came from as far as Oklahoma and Texas. From Beebetown, it moved toward Cleveland, Oil City, and eventually the refineries of New Jersey. Workers walked the lines daily, checking for leaks. Fires and leaks did occur. Dave Goodyear remembers a leak near Bennett's Corners one time where the fire department was called out on it. Luckily, it didn't start a fire. So vigilance was essential. Shifts were long, 12 hours and changed monthly. One shift changed day. One man would work 18 hours and the other would work 6. In 2013, members of the Brunswick Historical Society and those from the other 3 communities met at the Beebeetown Baptist Church, and several people there said that they had moved there when their fathers found work at the Buckeye Pipeline Company. They said that for Beebeetown, the pumping station was more than an industrial site. It was an economic lifeline. Jobs were scarce and the station provided steady work. Nearly every home took in boarders. The company even built houses for employees to the south of the pumping station, and we have pictures here. In the stories we could find in our records, and those of the Strongsville Historical Society, we learned that children who grew up there had some great memories. They loved watching the firemen open the doors, the boiler doors, flames roaring as they threw in more fuel. They watched the giant flywheels spin, and in winter, the reservoirs froze into perfect skating ponds. When I posted that we were going to have this online on Facebook, I received a message from a former Brunswick resident, Ramdai Samadhu John, a 1990 Brunswick High School graduate whose mother, Betty Musser, a 1964 Brunswick graduate, grew up in one of those homes, and Agatha, who is a sister, they lived in the little house right here on that property. Betty Musser had lots of memories to share, and they came here in the 1940s to work at the Buckeye Pipeline. Betty remembers the trail along the old interurban tracks that ran along Substation Road, and the Historical Society found a photo of a family and a carriage waiting at the stop, as well as some of those homes. There was a large equipment area across the street that looked like 3 or 4 big motors on the Strongsville side that had a rail across Boston Road to deliver coal to heat the boilers, for fuel for 4 oil tanks and for other machinery in the big red building. There was also a track to take coal down to the employees' homes. Each tank had a raised circular periphery around it with a staircase way up to the rim and then down to the pathway around the tank to walk around and check for leaks and read the pressure gauges. Betty said she wasn't supposed to be there, but went with her dad to watch from a distance. She really had seen a lot that other kids didn't get to see because she was pretty adventurous. And she said with an LOL, laughing about being adventurous. By the pumping station became part of the rhythm of daily life in Beebeetown. But the story of the Buckeye didn't end there. Buckeye, in 1930s, diesel engines replaced steam. Automation reduced the workforce. Eventually, the brick buildings were closed, the machinery moved, and the company houses demolished. What had once been a bustling industry faded into memory. Buckeye now transports refined petroleum products, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, in addition to crude oil. And it is still in business, and jet fuel is traveling down under our rights of way all the way through our communities, down Boston Road. Dave, you have one on your property, right?
That's a different part, but
Yeah.
yes.
So we do have jet fuel under our feet. Buckeye now transports refined fuel petroleum products. The lines play a key role in supplying airports, cities, and industries through the Midwest and East Coast. A neighborhood replaced the little employee houses that once stood south of the buildings. Unlike the early days of steam boilers and hand-dug trenches, today's pipeline system is done with modern technology. They have remote sensors to track pressure, flow, and temperature, control centers that adjust valves and reroute product instantly. And Chris Kalina, who lives here where one of the houses used to be, said that they can do it in minutes, right? They can, if they have to switch from jet fuel to crude oil, they can do it like that, in a snap. They have aerial and satellite monitoring and automated leak detection systems that operate continuously. The work that once was done by those men walking up and down the lines is now handled by a digital system and specialized crews. They operate under strict federal regulations. They have to have corrosion control, emergency response, environmental protection, and regular inspections using smart pigs, robotic devices that travel inside the pipes. It's a far cry from the days when a man with a shovel and a lantern walked the line. The lines that run along Boston roads and throughout local communities carry mostly jet fuel. While the Brunswick station has not been operating since 1965, the broader Buckeye system remains a major part of the region's energy infrastructure. It supports airports, fuel distributors, and industries across Ohio and neighboring states. So when we look back at our history, the Buckeye Pipeline isn't just a relic of the past, it's a reminder of how the small community once played a role in a national story that continues today in a more modern, high-tech pipeline system that still keeps energy flowing across the country and still has 2 large brick buildings standing in Brunswick Hills Township.
Is there anything
Now,
in the buildings now?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything in the buildings now?
Nothing, no. Chris had some pictures he got inside the building one day. And it's kind of trashed, but the buildings look perfectly fine. And I guess they think that someday they may need them again, so.
Did they remove the tanks or whatever?
The tanks were removed almost right from the very beginning, yeah. As soon as they shut down, those tanks were moved out. Betty, Agnes's sister, said that we should look for spots where the grass wouldn't grow because there were places where the oil spilled a lot. So I don't know if grass still doesn't grow there. I never knew that the tanks were across the street. I always thought everything was on the property. Now that there were 2 ponds on the property, one is gone, but the smaller one is still there. The kids used to ice skate on them, which in the winter time, and this would have been a great winter to ice skate on those ponds. I think it's really interesting that they tried selling the property one time. It did change hands for a while, but there was, for some reason, too much zoning problem and other things that it's now back into the Buckeye Partners, it's called Buckeye Partners. And so I was surprised that they're still in existence and those pipelines are still working. So anybody have questions that I can answer? Chris is here and Agnes is here.
But I wasn't paying attention. When was the building actually built?
What year?
1890.
What year?
18,
I think it was 1890.
yeah, 1890. So, and when you think about it, those buildings are really in pretty good shape. Now, she said, let me see if I can find it. There were other buildings there too. There were some that were, where did I put it? Anyway, there were wooden buildings there too. So one of the brick buildings was the office, the other was the pumping station, but there were other wood buildings that were like the blacksmithing shop and other places where they stored material. It never did say exactly how many people it employed, but it must have been tremendous because not only did families live in the houses that they built, but I remember those people saying that everybody opened their house and rented out a room for people who worked there. I suppose it was a good way to make some extra money for the people who owned the houses too, you know. Yes?
Question, you said, I didn't know what Beebe Town is, you kind of went.
Beebe Town, yeah, it's the corner where Mr. Beebe used to live.
Oh, okay.
And it's the corner of Boston and Marks.
Okay.
So at that corner, there's Liverpool town, or Columbia Station and Strongsville to the north, Liverpool and Brunswick to the south. And it was called Beebe Town, and obviously Mr. Beebe was pretty industrious because he had a cheese factory there. So these are 3 of the homes that were along the lake that the company built in order to house the men and, not women, men who worked there. And Agnes and her family grew up there. Here they are laying the pipeline by hand, digging the ditch by hand. Here's the family standing at the interurban station, and you can see that the pipeline building is right there. You'll be able to come up and look at them more closely.
Do we know who those are?
Here's the huge flywheel.
Do we know who the people are in those
No.
photos, or that was just something?
They had no mention about who they were, don't I wish?
Sam,
There's another one of a man waiting in a buggy at the station, and the houses are behind him.
Sam, you're talking about the station. If anybody pays attention, there's grindstone that's in front of the buildings there.
Yeah.
And on the grindstone, it's engraved Berea Station.
Ah.
Now, we're adjoining property owners, and I have all the easements because we have shared easements with them. And everything on all the original easements, it's all Buckeye Station. So that must have been what they referred to it as.
Oh, the Berea
Or
station.
the Berea Station, sorry.
Yeah, the Berea Station, yeah.
Berea Station.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's going to be fun. Steve is an absolute genius when it comes to talking about that interurban. Brian?
Well, did any of the lines maybe tee off at the Buckeye, at that area?
Oh, yeah.
Towards Berea?
Oh, it went all different.
Which was I remember was jet fuel and.
Yeah, yeah. And up here I just put in a copy of where their hubs are now, where their pumping stations are now. You can see it takes up most of the United States. This was an aerial view from a recent aerial view from the Medina County Auditor's records. A little map of the time that it was there, and it's written right here, Buckeye Pipeline, and they have it on both sides of the street, even though part of it's in Cuyahoga County and part of it is in Medina County. Another digging by hand. Here's one of the buildings that came down. Here's the blacksmith shop. I believe, and this is from Strongsville, I did get this one to print. This may be what they were talking about, the kids coming to watch the fuel being put into the fire, because you can see in the flames in the back. It was a damaged picture to begin with, and so it still has its damage. These are the buildings that still stand, the 2 buildings here. This gentleman was the supervisor of the pumping station. I was able to find a picture of him. And then I just picked a random picture of what it was like to get around in the snow back then. Can you imagine moving equipment in the snow in a buggy or in a cart? And then another inside one, and another one of the men working outside. None of which have names on them, unfortunately. I wish I knew who they were. You know,
Up in the area, it was very fun to be a part of that and to see the transition from the old things that were there to the new things that transpired. And yes, Dave, you probably put out the fire down there at Venice Corners, and I had been down there getting my plain dealer every time because I do remember that area when that was happening. I said, oh my goodness, how times have changed. Tonight I brought a little picture of Stony Hill as it goes over towards Strongsville. And Arthur Barber was our farm. Arthur Barber, it dates back to 1870.
Where Mapleside is.
And the picture that Arthur Barber, I didn't get the one with the buggy, but he was hauling limestone from that area to put in our farm. And of course now with the new Justice Farm up on the corner, all of that was the lifetimes of the rich and famous. They would come out of Cleveland, and that's where they resided. And of course the view was wonderful back then, and it was very agricultural. I had the privilege of meeting Mrs. Barber, and I'm not telling how old I am, Dave. At age 13, she was 90. And she could beat me up the hill. She could walk faster than I could. And she loved to tell stories. She originally lived in Berea and would transfer back and forth between the farm. But her house was like a horticultural place where she grew plants. You could barely get in her house. And when you went in there, she was all about botany and all of that. And she taught at Alden Wallace College. So I had the privilege, and I wish I would have saved more information from her. Because
Sounds like a good program.
she was a very fun person, very fun person. So
Who had this dream about a skiing hill. And it became Skyview Lodge, so, yeah, the Buleys hold a place in my memory after all of this time.
Well, first of all, I was the oldest of four, so guess who got to do all the cleaning, ironing, gardening. Well, particularly when my mom had to take care of the other three. But we were all born before 1950, so she had her hands full. And we had one little stinker out of the group, but finally she controlled herself, if you know what I mean. But I think you always find it. There's always got to be one, you know?
The families that all lived there.
Yeah, who are the other families?
Well, when you entered Dutch Law, lived at the first one. The second one was, third one was, the third one was my dad's boss, and he lived there.
So he lived in a...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so the boss lived in the...
So it was Peter Rentzel. I believe the Mr. Warner was before Rentzel, because we're talking like 40.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
And Mr. Rensel was our neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, so they lived there.
They lived
Before this one.
I'm trying to remember which way in was in there, you know what I mean? But yeah, everybody was really nice. I mean, we would get together very, very limited because everybody worked. And when the men came home from work, they were tired. So they didn't really care if they went anyplace or not, you know. But the women would get together. Mrs. Klein and Mr. Klein lived next door on our one side, and my mom would get together. They'd have a chow down, you know, talk for hours, okay? And it was a nice place. I mean, we didn't have a lot of young kids. The four that my mom had, including me, we were the only ones that had kids. So, but my dad worked and his dad worked for the Buckeye Pipeline. It was nice because you didn't have to worry about what you said sometimes or what you did. I mean, you could go on a hike and hardly anything if you know, so chose. And we had one of our sisters chose that. You know, but she did. The one sister I'm talking about, she just did stuff to annoy my mother. She didn't tell me that, but I could just see it. You know how you know some people are going to be that way. But it was nice growing up there. And I stayed there until 60.
Yeah, she said the house was sold or was taken down in 1960.
In 1960 it was,
Yeah.
yeah. The house stayed up, well, it didn't stay up that long after we moved out, to be honest with you. We were the last family to move
Yeah.
out.
Why did they tear them down? What was the reason?
Well, our house, we were told after they tore down everybody's house that our house was in the best condition. And the reason why they more or less complimented my folks is because there was 4 kids in that house, plus my grandmother on both sides stayed there. And Grandpa was there with my dad's mom. And that's how we moved in. My dad married my mom and they came back. And the folks were up in years and they needed someone for just not to give them, don't do this, don't do that, but just for moral support, you know. And actually, Grandpa he passed away when I was too young to even realize. I vaguely remember going to the funeral, but Grandma stuck around. She was strong, but we were, you know, they took the 1 bedroom and kind of stayed in that.
How many bedrooms were in the house?
There were 3 up and 1 down, I think. So it was a nice little house, and the wood on the floor was so put together. I don't know who did that, but
And yet they tore it down.
yeah, the wood was beautiful. Yeah,
It's a shame.
Yeah.
And did they work in the winter too? I mean,
Oh,
was it
yeah,
seasonal?
everybody had a shift. They had an 8-hour shift. And they rotated. And when you had that shift, you were going to work nights. You couldn't say, well, I can't work night. You know, they were a little powerful in what they wanted you to enjoy, so to speak.
So during the summer, a bunch of people would come in RVs to work because they could work,
Yeah.
dig, and so they actually turned the grounds into like a little campground
Oh.
for seasonal workers.
Oh, seasonal workers, oh, wow.
Eventually, I mean, I know a lot of people lived in houses, but then, you know, the RV or the whatever,
Yeah.
pool behind, and she said they would.
Yeah, I work rotating shifts, and if you have to do nothing, it's still hard on your body,
Oh, it is.
because you
My
can't
dad said
adjust
I
from
know,
shift
just
to shift.
changing. I can't imagine that guy
And
that
then
worked the
these people
18-hour
actually
shift.
have to
Yeah,
work.
and those were, they didn't come up a lot, but they did come up.
Yeah, my goodness.
And every hour, those tanks had to be checked, every hour. So what they did is, they did every other one at a certain time, and, you know, they worked it out. But I went one time with my dad, and of course my dad had broke his foot and leg on a job. I forget, I don't think it was with the Buckeye Pipeline, but he had,
You
he
really
had trouble,
worked.
yeah, he had trouble getting around, so you just kinda had to watch.
Were they considered well-paying jobs back then, or was it just steady work, or did they pay
It-
well?
It was steady work,
Steady.
and it couldn't have been that bad, because there was 4 of us kids with grandmas and grandpas living with us, and I never heard,
We're hungry, no?
I
Yeah.
bet we could probably find
Yeah, I'm just
records
interested-
of that
I'm just
somewhere.
wondering what it was considered
Yeah,
a good
that's
job,
a-
that people wanted it, or was it just a steady work, and you can't ask, back then you didn't ask for much more than being employed. So-
I don't know, my
It
dad-
probably wasn't more than $1 an hour, you know?
yeah, my dad worked continually ever since I was, you know, in school, yes.
Did you have the, or not you, but your parents, did they have a rent on the house, or was it
It was $7.50 a month.
50 cents a month?
$7.50.
$7.50 a month.
$7.50.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I would say $1 an hour was probably about the
Yeah.
pay. When I started working for the newspaper, I got 95 cents an hour. And that was pretty good for a woman.
And we had every year we'd have to have a garden, and everybody had to participate. When the age became older, yeah.
So that you had to help out in the garden.
Oh, yeah.
And you grew your own food?
We grew our own food, my mom did her own canning, and it worked out. I never heard my parents quarrel about money, never. In fact, there was very little quarreling.
Now you live in Medina now?
We live in Medina, and
So not far away.
no, and she lives right back there with us. Not in our house, but she has her own
Yeah.
house with 3 boys. So.
And you graduated from Brunswick High?
Graduated from Brunswick High School and did some college courses, what I could
What year did you graduate?
61.
61. Okay.
It was nice. I chaired
Oh, there-
for 4 years.
Jackie's here.
Hi, Jackie.
Class of 61.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Okay,